Hello. In this tutorial I will show you how to use LimboAI and how to use it in the editor. I've seen a lot of tutorials online on how to use it in code, but I've also seen a lot of questions in the official Discord of Godot asking how to use it with the editor itself. I've only found one tutorial, but it didn't really show how to switch between states properly, so I thought I'd give it a go. So before we start, you need to have this installed. You can just find it in the asset library, just type in LimboAI and then just download it. It will give an error the first time you download it. Just reload your project and everything should be fine. So now that you have LimboAI installed, you can start creating state machines. The most important thing to do when you start is to see if you have a folder under your main folder called AI tasks and trees. Under trees is where you're gonna save your state machines, and under task is where you're gonna save your separate task, the code that you're gonna be executing in a state machine. Just create these folders and you can press new here. Make sure you instantly save it, because Godot doesn't do this automatically or show you a pop-up from oh you didn't save it. It will just throw it away, so make sure you instantly save it. I created this one already, so I'm just gonna say okay. Okay. This will create a selector, and before we're gonna continue here, I'm gonna show you how I build out my state machines. To create the state machines, I usually use a drawing program or just a piece of paper, and I start drawing out. So I have my monster. I'm just gonna draw a little monster like this, easy. And he has two states. He has walk and run. These are my two states. I know that because I just want a monster that walks around, and when it spots a player, it just goes to a run animation and starts running towards the player. So these are your two states. It can be different for you. I'm not going to show you how to code it. I'm just explaining how to create it. So what is a state? A state is a sequence. It is represented by an arrow. You can see that in the Godot editor as well. You have here the composites and there's a sequence. A sequence will run until failure. So if you will run until success or everything fails. So under this sequence you're gonna start making your task. Let's say walk, he chooses a random position. And then I also have a task, walk towards. That's the easiest way. So you choose a random position and he's gonna walk towards it. There's already a big issue in this, but you'll see it in a bit. And with the run, same thing, he's just gonna run towards player. This is the easiest way to just define your states. So you have state 1 and you have state 2. So to implement something like this, we're gonna have to remember how sequences work. So a sequence is the error. This will run until everything is success, or if everything fails. One thing fails. So for example, if you get in walk, he checks for random position. If this returns failed, this will never execute, and the sequence itself will also return failed. This is handy to know, because if you've seen in Godot itself, it's not an arrow that's on top, but it's a selector, so not a sequence. The way that these work is kind of the opposite. These will check for the first child that returns success, and will continue until everything fails. So it's literally the opposite of a sequence, meaning that if you put this in the sequence, we have our walk and our run. Let's say we do some sort of check. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. And walk fails, because we said he's not walking. He will execute run. That's how the selector works. I'm gonna clear this this up. So how do we make a selector for this? Pretty easy. So you have your selector and we create a task. This one, a task are the piece of code that you're gonna use, and let's say it's check. Let's just call it check. And what this task is gonna do is gonna update a variable, a Blackboard variable. These are variables that are global for your entire Blackboard, so every task, every sequence can check them. And then in our sequence walk and run, we're just gonna check the variable. It's this icon. And if it's true, we can run the run sequence. If it's false, we can run the we just go continue, because the selector will automatically go until everything fails or until one succeeds. And since if this everything succeeds, this return succeeds, it's gonna look at the sequence, not at the underlying pieces. To showcase this, I've already made the code. I'll just quickly show it to you. I made a task called check player detected. What this is gonna do, I'm gonna move it under my selector. You will see that it goes under on the bottom. The easiest way to move it is just to press Ctrl and use the arrow keys to move it up or down. It works both ways. And this is gonna set a certain variable on my Blackboard, which I can then check to see the current state. Before I'm gonna show you the code, I'm gonna show you how to create a Blackboard variable. So Blackboard variables are just certain data items that can be used and checked over the entire Blackboard. To create one, you press your Blackboard here, the test for me, and you have a Blackboard plan. You can see already the state file you probably won't have, I just created, but I'll just show you again. I'm just gonna remove this real quick. This is how it's gonna look with you. You can just press add variable, and let's call it state, because this is gonna be the variable holding our state. And it's important to let it end with _var. This is just because LimboAI has implemented it that way, and it works better like that. So to be certain, it's really good to just put it behind. I think it still works without the _var, but in the documentation it says it's important to use it, so you should. This will be type string, because we're just going to type in the state name, walk or run in this case, and then you press OK. And now you have a state var here, and you can give it a default value. I call it walk, and then in walk you can just check var, move this up with Ctrl up, choose the variable you just created, and give it a value. You can just use a BB variant. This is just a variable itself. It's not accessible in the editor, or actually it's not accessible anywhere. It just holds a temporary variable to check with your state var. So the type is string, because state var is a string. We're gonna check for the equal. Here you can also like less than, but we need to check if it's equal. And then you have the option saved value or Blackboard var. If you choose Blackboard var, you can choose one of the variables you've created, or you can just use saved value, and this way you can just create a value. In this case it's a string, so you just type in walk, just like that. If it's an int, it will give you an integer to put in, and then you can see if it's just check if state var equals walk. And with run, we're gonna do the same thing. You create a check var, move it up, we choose the variable state var, I can click, we create a new BB variant, so temporary variable is from type string, because state var is string, and we give this type run, just like that. So now that we've set up the variables, I will show you how to implement a simple detection system to change the state. So I made this task. If you want to create your own task, you can just press here, new task, give it a name. Let's call it check task. Check task. Create. And it will extend PT action. check task will now also be visible in your MISC. Here you have check task that we just created. In this script you're gonna code the entire thing to set the state or change states between your two states that I have here. You can always extend this with just walk, run, idle, it's all possible. You just need to set it here. If you go to your script, you create a new function _tick. This is a bit like the process delta you have in a normal Godot script. It also just takes a physics process, I'm sorry. Tick delta, and this returns a status. These statuses are what the LimboAI uses that I've shown here. It checks for success or for fails, and you can return this. The important part to do in this one is to return failure. And the reason why you return failure is because if I told you the selector will run until one of its childs succeeded. So if you return success here, it will never get to walk or run. But if you instantly fail it, it will always do this, but it will still execute the code that's inside of a check player detected. And here we can just call our blackboard. You can use set var. The var name is a string, which for us is state underscore var. And then you just give in a certain value. Let's say walk. You save this. And that's all you need to do. The way that I've implemented it in my game is like this. I have the agent is the parent of the object where you've added the LimboAI, the state machine to. I'll show you that as well. You have here the PT player, and I added the behavior tree. That's all you need to do. And with this behavior tree, this is this one. I did a few more checks, not a lot. And if you say agent is gonna take the parent, so the monster in my case, which is this. And if I go back to the script, I can show that it just takes the play array, it's a raycast, and checks if it's colliding with a certain player. And then it just sets the var to chase. And then inside of my states, I'm gonna check if it's walking or chasing, and it will always switch between. I'm also gonna give you one example of a trigger. Like I said, a trigger is something that will just run once. It will keep watch on a certain variable. So in this example, I've created a new position variable because we don't always have to choose a new position or your character will like start spinning. There's some stuff that needs to be done when you start walking, but only once or until a certain point is made. And that's where a trigger is really handy. You just create another blackboard farm, like you see here, new position. This is just a boolean that I've created. I can show you here. New position var. It's a bool with decent on, which means that this will trigger the first time because it's on. It will execute this and this and this, and it will automatically say put it to false. You don't need to do anything. That's the part of a trigger. And in my move position script, I just check if it reached the new position, and I put it to true, so the trigger will trigger again, and just put it to false again. So how this would look like is it will start the chaser loop, it will check the state, it will be default walk, it will say okay, we're walking, so we're gonna move to the position. We're gonna check, does it have a position? Oh, it doesn't have one. We're gonna choose it. We set the animation to just like the walk animation. We go back to here because this will return success. Then it will check for the player detected. It will go here. This will execute, but this won't execute because it already did it, so it will be false. It's gonna fail, but this will fail anyway because you have a chase, and it will restart. You can also easily test this in game. If you go to debugger, you have a LimboAI here, and the moment you load up your game, I can show you if I press play. Now you won't have anything. I go to my debugger, ignore ignore the errors. I was still busy making something. I go to my game, press host, I press case 1, and I don't have a ground at the moment, but that's not really important. You can see here that I can check my player, and you can see what it's doing right now. It's currently just stuck in the walk moved position, because this will execute until it finds a new position. This is how you can check it during runtime. Alright, I hope this tutorial was a bit helpful. Feel free to leave a comment or something if you have any more questions, and I'll try to answer them. If you're interested in the code, I might make a tutorial on that, but it's still not optimized, so it's probably not the best to look at the moment. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.